Hey everyone, welcome to Academy Standouts for Week 7 of the 2021 Summer Split. I'm fresh off of my second vaccination shot, so I'm expecting my superpowers to kick in sometime around early August, and at that point, all of this may just go out the window and I'll just switch over to saving the world. But in the meantime, we are still talking about Academy Standouts, and we'll jump right in and start talking about the three players who stood out to me the most from Week 7. And I want to acknowledge up front, and I mentioned it a couple times in the write-up, which you can view on oracleselixir.com, that one of the games, so the whole series between Immortals Academy and Team Liquid Academy, there were some technical issues going on with the Team Liquid facilities. They didn't end up broadcasting that series. I have been able to watch one of the games, so I've included that in my takes here. And I got a little bit of information from about the second game from talking to some people who were able to watch it. But, I folded that in the best I can, but I just do want to acknowledge that there is some stuff I wasn't able to watch this week, just basically one game. So we'll put that disclaimer up front, but let's jump in. The first player that caught my eye, Palafox for FlyQuest Academy. And it shouldn't be any surprise that he is doing really well at this level. He was the best mid laner in Academy last year. And he's been able to kind of take some names coming in, and he stood out to me this week. He played Yone. That was fun. But it was mostly melee bruisers, right? So Silas, Aurelia, Yone, Akali, a combination of kind of melee bruisers and assassins. That's kind of what the meta is all about right now, and he did it well. He was assertive. He won his lane matchups. He put pressure on the game. He carried team fights, and all around he did pretty much what was asked from him. And kind of put his stamp on the games. I think there were some moments that I do want to call out and not kind of whitewash the whole thing as, he was great the whole time. He kind of mistimed his entries into some late fights. FlyQuest Academy did only go 2-2 this week. And you could say that there were some chances that he could have done a little more or a little better and won more of those games. But he put his team in a position, and it wasn't all on his shoulders for why they won or lost. I think he did a lot of good things, and on the whole stood out to me and had a strong showing. So definitely he's playing well enough that I think FlyQuest could look at having him back in the starting lineup if they want to break up their synergy of the starting group right now. I don't know. That's a separate question, but Palafox good. Moving on, another mid laner, Pretty. So this is one of the players who I wasn't able to watch every single game from him, but of the 3 games I did watch, he was really good to me in all 3 of those. From what I've heard and what I've seen in the post game screens and so on, the 4th game not so great, but the 3 games that I did see, a couple of wins over CLG Academy, I believe. I might have that wrong, but the second series against Team Liquid Academy was really good. Played Renekton, Aurelia, LeBlanc, and then I think the last loss was on LeBlanc as well. This is a case where his stats for the week actually do reflect how well he played, which is not always the case. In fact, it often isn't. If you look at these stats tables alongside the players, sometimes you'll see some negative numbers in their golden experience differences or not a great KDA or whatever, and I still say they did really well. But in this case, Pretty had a 7.8 KDA, over 500 gold plus experience difference at 10, good damage, really high farm numbers. He was all over the games. Strong week. I've talked about Pretty plenty before, so we don't need to dwell on it too much. And then another player, one of Pretty's opponents in that Team Liquid series, Eyla. Overall for the week, he did really well on Thresh, Leona, against C9 Academy. He played Bard in the game I wasn't able to watch, and like the clearest piece of information that I was told about that game is his Bard was really influential. So I do want to highlight him. He's someone who jumped out a lot more, I think, throughout the spring split, and then had a bit of a slow start this split, but he's really been coming back online. And as Team Liquid Academy have been kind of having some success dealing with some roster swaps as consequences of what's going on at the LCS level. Eyla has been continuing to to bring himself back into the spotlight, and we'll have to continue watching him as kind of one of the real drivers of what TL Academy bring to the league. So those are my top 3 for this league for this week right now rather. Some other players who caught my eye. Anda for Immortals Academy, I'd say both he and Viper as the duo, right? Like these are guys who I think I probably mentioned on these videos before. We're playing remotely for most of the split up until now, but have both been able to get visas in the past few weeks and get into the US, and the team is coming online more with them. Anda has this kind of style of being the glue guy, the anchor, really reliable player, and then Viper gets to do his wilder things, bring out his vein every now and then, do fun stuff like that, really try hard to carry. And so both of them, I think, are doing what they need to be doing and are playing pretty good games. Contracts and Jojo Pian, another kind of duo that I thought were pretty good overall in the week. Contracts has these, both of them. I think they have this really high variance in how they can play because they like to be so aggressive. They like to take control of games. They like to apply pressure. And so they both had, 8 death games in their first game of the week. And then the other 3, they really turned it around and turned it on. I think Jojo Pian probably had the strongest individual performance of anybody this week in his Silas game where he went 10-2-9 against Golden Guardians Academy. So, that's one of the big reasons why you really keep your eye on this guy is you never know when he can put up a double-digit kill game or go the other way a little bit. And in contracts, kind of the similar kind of a story. So they as a duo are really fun to watch. Tenacity for 100 Thieves Academy, I think, he keeps... The fun part of this week was he played Mordekaiser, which is interesting. You haven't really been seeing that much in a pretty long time. But he keeps showing that he's really rounded off the edges of his game and made himself really stable and reliable. And he can play a variety of styles. He still has that kind of carry top laner component to his game, but he can bring out different picks. He can play the tanks. He can play weak side scenarios, or he can play with a lot of resources. And that's something that has made him really kind of more of a plug and play kind of top laner going forward for the future, where I think he could fit into a lot of different kinds of LCS teams and do his job well and have that ability to have the team play through him, but without needing it, which is something that's really, really valuable, especially from the top lane position, given the way its role in the meta can shift over time. So good stuff from Tenacity. And then the last player I want to talk about, the new young jungler for Dignitas Academy, Will. When he first came into the league as the result of the benching of Dardoch, and then Acadian moved up to LCS, and then Dignitas brought in Will to be their new Academy jungler, and all indications are they had an existing relationship with him, but we're kind of leaving that and probably were planning to bring him in for next year. But circumstances dictated they brought him in for this year for the kind of the last 2/3 of the Academy summer split. And given that he was, as I understand it, a 16-year-old coming in with no competitive experience, maybe a couple of games, I think, in amateur, I had really low expectations. This guy, he's going to kind of be a placeholder, get some experience, and then I'll start paying attention to him next year. But he caught my eye. Okay, he's actually doing some really good things. So I was relatively impressed, is how I'd put it. Not enough to be like, hey, this guy's actually really good, until this week when he is actually really good. And I'd no longer say that I'm relatively impressed by Will under the circumstances. I'd say I was just straight up impressed. He played really well. The team went 1-3, but I think he did his job very effectively. He was a standout in the win. He was fulfilling his role in the losses, and I think being a bright point. And this guy, I'm actually just really excited about him right now, not just for what his future might be, but for what he brings to the table right at this moment. So I think Dignitas have a real gem here. And hopefully he'll be able to sustain that, especially as, what the more you start to kind of pop onto the scene and then have an influence, the more the opponent teams might start to pay attention to you and try to scout you out and maybe target and attack you a little bit more. So, he might go through that little bit of a correction as he gets attacked more, but we'll see how well he can sustain through that. And I think one way or another, going into 2022, he's going to be a really key name to keep an eye on from what I'm seeing so far. So those are the Academy standouts for week 7. 2 more weeks left in the regular season, then we get into the Proving Grounds qualifiers and Proving Grounds itself. So the coverage of that will shift a little bit more. We'll start incorporating more of the amateur competition that's competing against these Academy teams. But a couple more weeks of this before we get into that. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again next week.